Yeah, so since I am recording, let me just quickly introduce for the viewers out there. Yeah, so with joining me today on this interview is Jannet Davel. She's also an avid hiker and an adventurer, and she has hiked to base camp Mount Everest. So the two of you guys have something in common, Sibusiso. So I thought I'd asked her to join me in asking you some nice questions and chatting to you about some of your life experiences. So yeah, just to jump right into it. Yeah, so the lockdown it's kind of continuing. It made a resurgence now, lockdown 2021. I was very anxious last year when the president spoke. When was it? On the 26th or 27th of December, when he announced the stricter regulations. I was like, oh man, are we gonna be able to go hiking? Because we went on a hike from the 1st to the 6th of January in the southern Drakensberg, and I obviously got engaged there as well. So I was like, is this gonna happen? I was on edge. Like, yeah, I would have just gone hiking anywhere if we couldn't go hike there. But I'm glad we were still able to do our hike. Yeah, so I'm gonna jump into some questions. So Sibusiso, so Jannet and I will alternate on asking you some questions we have lined up, but I'm going to start with asking you, what's your favorite destination in South Africa?
What is my favorite destination in South Africa? It's a very interesting question because I have got many places. But purely based on my experiences with my family, there are two places. The other is for holiday with the family, and that is the Kruger National Park. We won't go anywhere else. Holiday time, we're in the Kruger Park. On weekends where we feel we can just sneak in and drive through, we go in there. We just love being in nature with wildlife, and that's that part. But if it comes to the adventure side, you've mentioned it, my best part of this country of South Africa is the Drakensberg. I would go and live there anytime. And I was talking right now to Jannet about it, that I'm planning another trip towards the end of this year, just purely because I just love the Drakensberg. So those are the two places determined by the time and why that place. For adventure, definitely the Drakensberg, but for holiday and when I'm at home with the family, it is the Kruger National Park.
Awesome, cool. And what's your favorite food when you're out on a hike?
It is always a tough one when it comes to food, but I'll say it this way. I've never been fussy about food, about what I eat when I'm on a hike, purely because of the limitations that you tend to have. It's different when you are planning your own hike, where you will carry your own food and cook for your own. It helps that way. That is, in that way, then you are able to sort of pick your very best and what you will prefer.
Yeah.
And because I say to people, I define myself as a hedgehog, as opposed to being a fox. Characteristics of a fox, you can go and read about them. Hedgehog, simplicity. The simpler, the better for me. So when I go on a hike, I just want the simplest of food that I can be able to cook in a very easier and short space of time that I have something to eat. So I always go the already pre-cooked. We call it freeze-dried, which is just rehydrate and you eat. And so it's variety. I just choose whatever. But when it comes to favorites, I don't think on a hike you have a chance to have your favorites, really, purely because on the expeditions I go to, the food is provided for, and I don't dictate as to what to eat, it has put me in a very good stead and position, because I don't really get frustrated that this morning I didn't have this for breakfast, or at dinner wasn't my best because I didn't eat what I would have wanted to eat. So you've got to be very flexible when it comes to that, and you can't really mess up your head being fussy about it. Yes, as I said, you might have your preferred whatever on a day or two, but it shouldn't be a big issue really. And for me, it is not. And I'm able to adapt and eat what is provided. And it is also for purely appreciating, if it's on a trip where people are carrying the food and they're cooking for me, I appreciate the fact that they made an effort to bring food, and therefore I just appreciate it and cherish it by eating it. So I'm not a fussy person when it comes to food on a hike.
Awesome. Yeah, and then my last question for now is about your favorites. It's a two-parter. It doesn't have to be the same answer, but what was your favorite trip of all time, and what's your favorite adventure destination outside South Africa?
My favorite trip of all time, that it will have to be my first Mount Everest in 2003. It has many facets in it. It was my first sort of the longest I would be away from my family or from home. It would be the longest I would be living in very cold places for that long. It was 2 months. And it led to the history making of me summiting Everest that year. And the reason it's my favorite is because I can't think of any other place like I do Everest every day. And I talk about it pretty much every day. I think in every interaction or every interview I do, it is that trip that comes first, and then all the other ones follows. I'd never been a traveler. I'd never gone anywhere overseas or even out of South Africa for holiday. So it is not really easy for me to say a specific place is a destination for me. No, I don't have any place that can really tick that box. So the answer will be none to my favorite place or destination. But it has to be on a mountain somewhere. I don't know. But if I was to find myself going for a holiday anywhere else, I would be completely lost. I would have to find someone else to decide where should that be.
Okay, awesome. Cool. All right, so I'm going to hand over to Jannet to ask you a few questions about how do we still seek adventure in this lockdown COVID world of ours?
So with COVID being the reality now, the word micro-adventuring comes up quite a lot. So that's seeking the little things, adventuring in the everyday, or just a small weekend adventures here and there. How does that look for you at the moment? And almost in the same breath, I want to ask, how do you handle when people constantly ask you what's next? So I think it's also a two-part question. So how do you handle micro-adventuring, because we cannot go on this big trips at the moment with COVID reality? And then secondly, in this COVID time and people asking you what's next, how do you handle that?
Yeah, well, COVID-19 has devastated many of us, and not just we explorers and adventurers. I pretty much believe that every human being has been just devastated by the whole thing. It's become much more frustrating for us adventurers, because I think every year you are looking forward to one or two big trips that you want to embark on and do, that will probably see you through the year. And with those being cut off, then you had to come back and just be realistic about it. I think in as much as we are big dreamers, we are ambitious, and we are optimists at the same time. But I think our optimism has to rely or depend on reality. And the reality at the moment is that you can't go for your bigger expeditions. It's beyond your control. So realistically, it won't work. You can't then frustrate yourself emotionally and spiritually or mentally by just blaming what is happening around. So that has taught me to just say, okay, I know I have these big ambitions. I wanted to go there, but what is it that I'm able to do right now in the midst of COVID that I can do? So it's about finding something in the midst of this pandemic that you are able to keep going and gets you excited every day you get up. So I've been able to come up with some ideas. You know, you just become innovative. I'm not talking about these people who wall climb and climb up their fridges and things. I cannot do that. I cannot do that. But you've got to find something that gets you up in the morning or excites you throughout the day. And I'm an athlete. I run, and it was very difficult for me to go up in the morning, putting on my running shoes just for me running and knowing that I won't be able to participate in any road races, because normally I run a number of races a year in this country, which is another way that keeps me going and it excites me. I'll run from standard marathons to ultra marathons, and we have the many in this country, but in the midst of COVID-19, we can't run. So I had to rethink why do I really run? And I realized that the reason I chose running was purely to stay healthy and fit. And therefore I thought, okay, how do I then keep that in my mind, that every day when I get up, it's not about going to a race, it's just about maintaining my health and fitness regime. And that is then got me excited to get up and go and run another 5K and another 10K, because I had to shift the focus. It was no longer preparing for a marathon. It was just preparing my body, conditioning my body to be fit and healthy. And that got me energized to go. And I mentioned that to you earlier of offline, that quite recently again, to try and noticing that this year is going to be another year of really uncertainty. What do? I decided to set myself a 90-day challenge, which is 3 months of like running 5 kilometers every day. And I'm on day 19 today as we speak. And that excites me. That gives me the energy in the morning to get up and run, or in the afternoon to get up and run that 5K. And it's not like I'm doing a little jog or something. I run very hard. Well, at my age, hard means I run sub 30 minutes for a 5K, and yesterday I did 23 minutes. But it's all I'm saying is you've got to make do with what you've got during these times, and that is to anyone out there. It's not for us explorers and adventurers or these fitness freaks that we are. You've got to be able to look around you and say, what is it that I can do that can still keep me. So set yourself little adventures that you will do, not one, because you've got to have a multiple of them. If you have one, then once you achieve it, what do you do? So you've got to have a hell lot of them in your way. So how does one answer the question or handle the question, what next? Well, you will always get that answer, because that question, because I never thought people will ask me what next after Everest. And for many times I'd say, what are you talking about? I've climbed the highest mountain in the world, and you still ask me what next? Because I didn't understand why I would ask a person like that. If a person is a 100-meter sprinter and they sprint and they win a world record in the 100-meter, why would I say what is next? You know, they've run the race, so they've finished it. But over the years, I realized that, okay, the reason people ask that question is because what you achieve is never an ending. It's never a destination, but it is a testimony of what you can achieve. And therefore, you are expected to move beyond that. So you've got to look beyond what you've achieved. So it's very easy to answer that question to people. I say, you know what, I may not be climbing, or I may not be doing the things I want to do during COVID-19, but I've got my goals and my dreams lined up. I'm already working 2023 on a project that I will share with Donny as well. So I constantly think beyond the pandemic, and that is the way to deal with it. You know, so if the what next has to come from that. You've got to have your what next in your mind, even if you are not doing it or working very aggressively towards it, but in a way or the other, you must have those things in your head, because, you know, maybe, who knows, the pandemic will go and then we still have to have life. You shouldn't be starting from scratch to say, oh dear, what do I do now? You should be saying, right, I've been waiting. Now the opportunity has come for me to just go and work on what I've been thinking about and hoping I wanted to do. So you've got to keep writing those dreams and those goals down, and then go on with them. So that question of what next, there's plenty next in my head.
Yeah, that's very cool. Cool. I'm gonna go from that question, kind of leading into the next. It's also a nice question. So looking back over your life, there were many summit moments, but which moments are the most significant to you? Is it the big summit moments, or were there smaller moments that are smaller, not as flashy, or not like I just summited Mount Everest kind of moments, but that are just as significant? What stands out for you when you look back over your life?
Well, that's another very broad question, which I can answer very broadly, because when I reflect on my life, there are many things that I look at and cherish and see as big achievements, even though most people won't know about them, because I think it tends to, your biggest summit, like your Everest, tends to overshadow all the other little things that you have achieved, which still has a very profound meaning to you. So if I reflected in my life and starting pre-Everest, I'd come up from a background where I didn't have a home, and my parents separated when I was very young. As a result of it, I only got to matric. That is the only basic or highest level of education that I've got. So coming out of that and having a dream to have a home for myself, which my children will look and say they have a home, which I didn't have, and having achieved that, to me is huge. And to me, it has had such a very positive influence and impact in my life, in saying that you can change the way things have been in your life when you were growing up. You shouldn't be stuck with how you were. If you didn't like it, it's up to you to just step up and make things change, so that you can create and craft the life that you want it to be. And I think I've done that. So that is very huge for me. And I'm counting, I'm closing into 30 years, having lived with my, I probably would say, childhood partner, my wife. We met at a very young age, blessed with 4 children, and towards the end of last year, our first daughter was an admitted attorney of the High Court, and it is through all my efforts and my commitments and desire to give them a much more better future or life than I inherited from my parents, and achieving that as well, it's got such a profound meaning. It's huge. It's a legacy that I'm very proud about, to say, here you are, you only had O level of education, you've had a family that has grown so much, you're near 30 years together with your partner, and you have a home for your children, which you never had. And then comes Everest. I never thought I would climb Everest up until the age of 26, when I met John Davel, because I'd never been a hiker nor a climber while growing up, through the challenges or the difficulties I faced. But once I decided to embark on that journey and went to climb Everest and summited it, coming from the background, it had such a profound influence in my life and in the life of the family too, because I realized then again that, you know what, it doesn't matter how you start and when you start, it is about starting that matters. would have thought that at the age of 33, I would summit Everest and then go on and do the 7 summits and walk to the North Pole and the South Pole. It's unthinkable, but it is doable as long as you just focus. So I've got a whole lot of things that I can put together, which I cherish every day when I sit and pause and reflect in my life. Well, I'm not that young, but at the same time, I'm not that old to really realize that I've done so much and I've influenced and impacted so many people in my life, the way I've lived it and the way I've done things. So yeah, no, it's very profound and very heartwarming when you look at it and say, who would have believed that I will be talking about these things when I'm at this stage? Not me, not in my lifetime that I thought I would be talking about this, sharing it with you.
That's amazing. Thank you. Jannet, do you want to?
Yeah, Sibusiso for me, there is this almost this golden thread in your story, and this development from will I be able to summit this mountain? And then the question grew bigger than yourself. So it grew from, will I be able to do it, to how can I inspire others to summit the mountains in their own lives? And that for me is a good representation and the development in your story. What was for you that heart change of, yes, I'm gonna do it, to maybe I can do it for a bigger community and not for myself anymore? There was this change in focus for me in your story.
Yes, it's interesting that it has taken me a long time that it happened at the very same moment I said to John, yes, I would do it, when he asked me the question, because him and I had, let me share how our conversation had gone. I'd helped him climb this little waterfall, and we get to the top of it. We're on the way down, and then he says, I've been watching you today, and you climb with such ease, and you're so agile, you don't show any fear. But it poses the question why there are not that many climbers coming from Africa. He was very specific. He said, there are no black climbers. So I said to him, look, we black people don't look at mountains and suddenly have this sudden desire or urge to go up and climb and have a look at how our houses or something. And then he goes on and says, well, it is amazing that you say that, because it is almost more than 40 years since Edmund Hillary and Shepherd Tenzing Norgay summited Everest in 1953. I don't recall it having been attempted by an African. And at that time, when what he meant was regardless of color. So again, I had to think about, but why hadn't we do it? And it was happening like very, very fast, that I'm thinking, going wild. And I thought, well, he's talking about a mountain that is overseas. So surely there's no African that can afford financially to travel overseas to climb mountains. I'd never been on holiday anywhere else other than being in Africa, and I was 26 years old. So how could I afford to go and climb a mountain? And I thought I would tell him that. And when I say that, then that is when he came up with the question saying, well, let us say you had the opportunity and all the means to do it. Would you do it? Again, interesting enough, I didn't say to him, wait, I will go home and think about it. At that very moment, there was that shift that you're talking about, because then I put myself off the picture to say, if you get this opportunity then to do this, say yes, you want to do it, but knowing purely that it's not for you. You are doing it to inspire the continent, to just show them what they can achieve as Africans. And that's the reason I said yes. So that was that massive shift. And it happened at that instant. I said to him, yes, I want to do it. And it was so profound, because once I realized that was the reason I wanted to do it, then it overwhelmed me. It became so huge that I wasn't going to just give up like that. I was going to fight all the way, by all my might, to stand on the summit of that mountain. It was that beyond me feeling that you are doing this thing, but actually this is not for you. And I never knew how powerful that is up until I sat down and realized, you know, what pushed me through the cold, through the setbacks, just sitting there persistently and with the determination. It wasn't because I was physically able and fit to do it. It was tough, but it was because of that inner reason why you said you wanted to do this that obviously pushed me to the top of that mountain. And that is very profound. I think all of us, we should be able to identify with that. Why are you doing what you are doing? What is the bigger picture? Or what cause are you serving in the greater scheme of things? Because at the end, you think it is you, but truly it is not about you. Life is just about other people out there. Up until you recognize with that, then it becomes near impossible to live your life fulfillingly. Because, I mean, going back to that, I now understand, having read that, you know, what we do gives us happiness, which is me. I climbed the mountain, I was happy, I was doing it. But what I was doing it for gives you fulfillment. And I was so fulfilled when I walked down that mountain, having summited it, knowing that every African child believes they can do it because I've done it.
That's awesome.
Love it. Yeah.
Thank you. Cool.
Yeah.
So in the video, you quote Helen Keller, the famous quote of Helen Keller saying, "Life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all." Do you have any other life quotes that inspired you or that had a big impact on you, or that even just motivated you in your toughest moments?
I'll be honest. I will be honest with you, Donny. I never had any at that stage. Even the Helen Keller quote, it came as I understood life in a much more broader way, having been exposed to what was around me and what I've done. And then it sort of resonated well when I understood why we live. We either make it an adventure or nothing. And so the one that I've grown over the years to sort of understand myself, that I keep myself motivated with, is that we have no limits, really. We are the only limits to what we can achieve. And so I live by that every day, and that is what makes me to keep going and set new goals, that I will never know my full potential and capabilities. I can lie to myself that I know my limitations, but all of that is a lie. And that's what I tell people. You're lying to you. If you say you know your limitations, I'll say, no, you're lying to yourself. But I won't interfere, because as they say, if you think you can, you are right, or if you think you can't, you are also right. So it's what you choose in between. So I choose to understand that we are limitless, and that is what I live by.
That's very, very cool. Thank you.
Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I just want to thank you guys both for joining me, making time for this. Sibu, I hope you're happy with the video we produced. I hope it captures your spirit to a great degree. And I'm